Hello, Craig and Greg. Can you hear us in
I
the meeting room?
can now.
Yeah, I got you now, Gordon. Thank you.
Thank you.
I was gonna try to make it today, but my car is now in the shop, so
Uh-oh.
didn't quite make it down there.
Well, I'm glad you can still join us. We're going to start, and we still need some more people to join to get a quorum, so we're going to be a few minutes yet, I think.
Good afternoon. I'm Carl Rockwell. I'm the vice chair. Ryan is not here, obviously. So we have a quorum. I don't know if there's anybody there that wants to introduce themselves if they haven't been to a meeting previously, or they're representing one of the voting members.
Yeah, my name is Zach Jose. I work for the city of Mesa. I work with Ryan. I've been involved with the landscape and irrigation specs. That's one of the cases that we're going to review today. And Ryan asked if I attended the meeting in his place. So I'm not sure if that makes me a voting member or not, but I'm here to support however needed, and then also talk through anything related to the landscape specifications case.
Thank you, Zach. Yes, if you're filling in for Ryan as a proxy, you are allowed to vote on the cases this meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else wants to introduce themselves? Might not be a regular member or. Okay, let's,
Excuse me. Who has the phone number ending in the numbers 6046? Six one four six, sorry. Okay, not sure who that is. Might be just an audio for someone who's already here. Okay.
okay, call the audience. An opportunity will be provided to members of the public to provide input through written comment to the Standards, Specification, and Details Committee on items that are not on the agenda that are within the jurisdiction of MAG, or on items on the agenda for discussion but not for action. Members of the public are asked to submit written comments related to the meeting through the MAG website at www.azmag.gov/comments and indicate for which meeting the comment is intended. Comments may be sent at any time leading up to the meeting, but must be received at least 1 hour prior to the posted starting time for the meeting. Comments received prior to the deadline will be read aloud during the meeting. Comments may also be provided in person. Comments must not exceed 3 minutes in length. A total of 15 minutes will be provided for the call to the audience agenda items unless the chair of the Standards, Specifications, and Details Committee requests an exception to this limit. Please note that comments received for the agenda items posted for action will be read at the time the item is heard. To attend the meeting by technological means, members of the public may access the link to watch a video stream on the MAG website by clicking on "This meeting is available to watch online" link provided at https://azmag.gov/events/31512. Okay, to item number 3, approval of the May 4th, 2022 meeting minutes. If you need a moment to read them, please do so, or we can, if you have read them, if we have a motion and a second, we can approve them.
Carl, I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the meeting minutes as written.
Do we have a second?
Carl, I'll go ahead and second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. So you have to read the roll call?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, starting off with Avondale,
Yes.
Buckeye,
Yes.
Chandler,
Yes.
Gilbert,
Yes.
Glendale. Glendale? Goodyear. Maricopa County,
Yes.
Mesa,
Yes.
Peoria,
Yes.
Phoenix,
Yes.
Scottsdale,
Yes.
Surprise,
Yes.
Tempe. And Youngtown.
Yes.
Youngtown? All right, I don't believe Youngtown, Glendale, or Goodyear are present.
Okay, that motion passes.
Thomas Duff here for El Mirage.
Oh, thank you for joining us. I forgot to add El Mirage back into our voting list, but I'll record you as, is that a yes for you?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to go to item number 4. Revised landscape specification. Section 425 topsoil, section 430 landscaping, and section 795 landscape material. Update sections based on landscape irrigation group recommended for changes, sponsored by Ryan Nichols, Mesa, and outside working group. I guess Ryan's not here, but I'd certainly like the proxy to say something about this case. And it is up for possible action.
Yeah, I guess that's my cue. So I'll talk specifically about these cases. This has been an effort that there's a few of us working on this with MAG for quite a while on the landscape specific specifications. We've gone through multiple revisions of updating the specification sections for these 3 sections: 425 topsoil, 430 landscaping, and 795 landscape materials. And we've submitted these in the past for review and comment. And we just went through an additional, what we're thinking is a final round of review and comment, and those comments were incorporated. And I provided the final versions of these to Gordon last week to be presented for possible action of adopting these sections of the landscape specifications. I know we have Wayne Colbank with Logan Simpson Design and Ann with ASU on the call as well. I'm available for any questions, or Gordon, if there's something I left off that I wasn't planning on being the co-sponsor of this or filling in for the co-sponsor. So if there's something I left off, please feel free to chime in and correct anything I mentioned.
This is Peter Canderas also. We discussed this in our last working group meeting. I think in terms of the specifications, we really didn't have a lot of changes, Zach. And the ones you submitted last time, I think it was the details. We had the naming changes more than anything else. But I think in the spec, did we have any real substantial changes in the wording?
Not so much in the content of the wording. Most of it was grammatical changes, but the content that there really was. I went and did incorporated the final comments, and nothing really changed from a content standpoint. It was mostly just cleaning up some of the text and grammatical changes.
Yeah, that's what I thought. We've incorporated any comments. I think we've now gone a number of cycles waiting to get more comments. We've got some. Everything we have has been incorporated. So we're at that point. There's not a lot more we can do with the standards component. Are we talking about both cases simultaneously, the 214 and the 14 and 15? I can't remember. We're going to do both at once.
Separately.
I'm sorry.
We'll do it separately.
Okay, good. Yeah, that one we did do some changes, not to content, but I think we're kind of at that point on the standards changes. We don't have anything else really to do left on it. And I can't call for a vote, so.
Are there any comments from the committee, questions or anything? Or does someone want to provide a motion to approve?
Carl, I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve case number 2114.
This is Warren. I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other comments? Okay, we'll go ahead and do a vote.
Okay, for case 2114, Avondale,
Yes.
Buckeye,
Buckeye is a yes.
Chandler,
Yes.
El Mirage,
Yes.
Gilbert,
Yes.
Wendell, Goodyear, Maricopa County,
Yes.
Mesa,
Yes.
Peoria,
Yes.
Phoenix,
Yes.
Scottsdale,
Yes.
Surprise,
Yes.
Tempe,
Yes.
Youngtown. Not present.
Okay, that motion passes. Now we're going to do case 2115, new landscaping details. 19 new details based on city supplement and landscape irrigation group recommendations. 601 through 609 series. And these are new details. Yeah, these are all brand new details, and they're distinct from be related to the irrigation companies.
This is Zach again. I can go ahead and talk about the details as well. This was this effort to bring to light these new details was a concurrent effort with the landscape specifications. I know we spent a little bit more time working with MAG on being able to review the specifications. These details have gone under review, and I believe the biggest comment, there's a little bit of content change, but the biggest comment was numbering the details in an order that was consistent with MAG as far as sectioning. And then there was an additional detail recently added, and that was for palm tree staking, installation and staking. And so that was like the last thing that changed on these details was the numbering and the addition of that palm tree staking.
Yeah, if I remember right on our grouping, you'll see there's now 601-1, 2, 3, and so on, the 603-1s. The groupings were based on the type of installation, and I'm trying to remember what we did. I'm looking for my notes here. So I think the 601 grouping, Zach, those were for trees.
Peter, this is Wayne.
There we go.
Yeah, the 601 was for the staking of the plantings. The 603 was actually the planting details themselves for all plant types. As you'll see here, there's agaves and prickly pears, trees, and even the palm tree here that was added. The next series was the what we call hardscape, or the decomposed granite and the rock materials. And so they were, the details were broken out and reorganized by groupings of activities, as was suggested.
Yeah, I think this makes it nice now, because if we had any details related to those groupings, we don't have to keep on this. They won't be mixed up with everything else. So if you have another planting detail, it goes with planting work. Have hardscape, it goes with a hardscape. And I think it was what we wanted to get in. I think the palm tree was the city of Chandler. We got that added to it. There were some minor changes, I think, were made from the city of Chandler. We talked about in the working group.
Yes, this detail was suggested by Warren, which was a great suggestion that was actually overlooked. And the basis of this was a city of Chandler detail. Through at it, several of our landscape architects have made some adjustments. We passed it back through Warren, and Warren has given us a thumbs up on it.
Okay, so he's had a chance to see it then. Good. Okay.
Yes, it looks great. Thank you, Wayne. A couple questions for you guys on the. I see you did add the fertilizer tablet per plan for this tree, which is, I believe, mentioned in section 430. What's required in terms of the fertilizer tablet. Mm-hmm. Do we want to, one, mention section 430, and two, do we want to include the fertilizer tablet as you have shown here with the leader on all of the planting details to be consistent?
What's your thoughts on that, Wayne? I like adding section 130. It ties the detail to the spec.
Well, certainly it can be done. And if we want to be consistent, we would do it that way. Actually, on this detail, we were, there is some, let me just say this, there is some discussion in the industry about fertilizer tablets. So we were hoping to leave that decision about the quantity and the type of tablets to the designer as part of their decision making. So that's why we didn't actually lock that down.
And I'll trust your judgment on that, Wayne. I'm definitely not an expert, so whatever you think's appropriate. And if, I just didn't know if we needed to make sure it was captured, if it's something that, yes, it's in the spec. We know you can read the spec, but it's important on the detail. But I'll trust your judgment, whatever makes sense based on current industry standards.
Section 430, I'm trying to pull that up. Do we specify within the type of fertilizer tablet?
It's actually going to be in 795.
Oh, okay.
All right, I thought it was okay.
I'm curious. I don't have that. I thought I had them both sitting here, but I don't. How?
Fertilizer tablets are a pretty common material.
Yeah, I'm just trying to see how we word it.
Something that's going to be missed by anybody, I don't think.
I'm just trying to see how we worded in 795.
Remember which subsection?
Take a look at section 430.5.6. I thought that was it.
I know it calls for, if you look at section, yeah, you're right, 430.5.6, it calls for the quantity as far as the type or the manufacturer. That may be covered in 795. I'll look there as well.
What did you say for the subsection?
Right.
430.5.6.
That's got the quantities, yeah. Oh, if that's the case, we really should be referencing to section 430 then. Even if it's in the most general sense.
Reference it and maybe then or as specified on plans. I don't know, something of that nature.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. This would be then more of a default. Unless otherwise specified on the plan.
Something like that.
Oh yeah, this is if specified place. Yeah, this is an if specified.
Again, I'll trust your judgment on standard industry, so it's not whatever makes the most sense.
Yeah, that's a good point. We're going to get a contradiction here or not.
I believe the palm tree detail is the only one that calls it out specifically. So
Yes.
maybe what we do is just remove it from that one detail, and then we always have the specifications to go back onto if the designer chooses to specify tablets or not.
Yeah, that may be a better option. If the specification doesn't say it's required, there could be easy confusion on the detail.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah, I think I'd agree. Get rid of it there.
And then related to that, in section, after you make that note, in 795.3.4 is where it talks about the chemical composition of the fertilizer tabs, just for reference from the material standpoint.
Yeah. If we remove it from here, though, it becomes a non-issue.
Yeah, I agree.
Any other thoughts on that? I'm definitely not a landscape person. That's what I do in the weekend at home. So
do I understand that the suggestion is just to remove the reference to the fertilizer tablet on this detail?
yeah, If we don't, then we really should be specifying where more information is on it in the standards. But if in the standard it says, if specified, it's kind of we're going around in a circle. One, if it's noted here, it's going to be assumed it's always used. But in the standard, in the spec, it's not saying it's always used.
It's easy enough to remove this note from the detail.
Besides the fertilizer tablet, are there any other comments? Questions?
One
Just a
little,
minor comment on the bottom left. I mean, the detail number 9, I just need to have 603-9 on both sides just to be consistent, right?
yeah, that's true of all of the details. I noticed that as well, but that's a very minor thing that I could correct after the fact if you did want to go ahead and vote on them today.
Okay.
So we have remove the fertilizer tablet call out and correct the title blocks. I guess remove one of the 9s or make them the same on both sides. Any other comments?
Yeah, Carl, this is Jim Badowich with Avondale. Should there be any dimension as far as how deep these things get buried? I'm trying to find it here. Maybe it's here. I'm not. And as far as the depth, and I know there's working with contractors, there's a specific depth that they need to be planted to. This is for the palm tree. Is it covered in a note? I've been told it's critical how much, where you put the placement of the root ball as far as how much dirt's put over the root ball. And I don't know if that's on here.
Wayne, you're on mute. I wondered if you could address that, because I thought we had talked about that.
Yes, and I thought it was on the detail.
Yeah.
Can you scroll up, Gordon, on the notes? Yeah, it's the first note.
What does that mean? At max 6-foot depth, lower than original planting depth?
Yeah, you'll see on the detail there that the root ball itself, the top of the root ball can't be deeper than 6 inches below the finished grade, because palm trees are basically relocated from site to site.
Right.
It's that dimension of being within that top 6 inches is the critical piece, so that you don't bury them. People have done that in the past. People have stuck the root ball up above the grade, but that's really not the common practice. Mostly people tend to bury them deeper than need be. And so that's the dimension that's critical there.
But how do they know the original planting depth? These come from California. It needs to be something they can measure in the field, and say, okay, here's the top of the root ball.
You have the root ball there.
So do we need a note to specify that the top of the root ball is the original planting depth?
Well, just put that in the note.
Yeah.
I just lower an original planting depth. Who's going to know that on site? When they're planting.
So it'd be modifying the note to something to the extent do not bury palm plant a maximum 6-inch depth lower than the original planting depth. In parentheses, we'd put top of root ball.
Or just say plant top of root ball if that's the norm.
Plant at 6-inch depth, maximum 6-inch depth lower than top of root ball.
Because that's what they can measure out in the field. So.
Mm-hmm. Does that sound reasonable, Wayne?
Yeah, certainly. That's really the intent here. We were working with what we commonly use in terms of language, but if it's clear to others to have to change the language, that's certainly not a problem.
That's just always been an issue in the field when we plant these between the contractor and the inspector. They go, how deep? And everybody says, what's the root ball? And so that's why we should mention that, say it's 6 inches, maximum depth, 6 inches lower than the top of the root ball. I think that everybody can determine that in the field when they're planting these.
Easy enough to do.
Because it's a big operation. You got traffic control, you got crane waiting, we don't want to be, thinking about, well, how deep do we do this? And then, well, we got to find out what the original planting depth was. It just seems a little, just too much guesswork.
A good comment. So we have 2 changes that we would make to this sheet, which would be change the words original planting depth to top of the root ball. And then we delete the fertilizer tablet per plan and the arrow associated with it.
Any other comments, questions?
So the question comes down to, do we want to bring this back next month with those 2 changes, or would you all like to vote on it now?
I think the change probably should be done by someone familiar with that detail.
Okay.
I think that would be appropriate.
Okay, we'll just bring it back. We'll get those changes and get that resubmitted.
Mention where that root ball is in relation to the finished grade.
Okay.
Mike, thank you.
Any other comments on this case? Okay, we'll hold this and with this with these changes and bring it back next month. Number 6, case 2201, miscellaneous corrections. We have 3 of them here that have been here for multiple meetings. Are there any other miscellaneous corrections anybody has? Okay, not hearing any. We'll carry. Usually carry these till the end of the year and then vote on them. Number 7, case 2203, update concrete collar on detail 391-1, 391-2, and 392. Remove type B installation option. It was last updated 4/25/22. Revise these details by lowering the grade to the bottom of the concrete collar in unpaved areas similar to the manhole detail. Make the concrete collar a straight angle. Sponsored by Roy Harrington, and it's up for discussion and possible vote.
So, Carl, this is Roy. Thank you. So just an update to the committee. We did, I haven't received any additional comments other than what was discussed at the last monthly meeting. We did have a meeting with the water and sewer working group, and there weren't any additional comments to this detail. But essentially, like you said, this detail, or this is making modifications to the concrete collar for detail 391-1, 391-2, and 392, basically taking the outside edge of the collar, which the current detail shows it is 2 inches below grade, and bringing it so that it's actually the outside edge of the collar is at grade. So it kind of keeps the dirt or anything that from washing into the valve box. Essentially, this was something that was brought up by our maintenance groups here at the city. But I have not received any additional comments. And the detail, the 392 the debris cap. Because we were getting rid of the type B, that detail was basically removed, and the collar was basically redrawn as what's proposed on 391-1 and 391-2.
I believe the old detail used to have like a curve, kind of a curve, reverse curve type of.
Exactly, almost like an S curve, almost like the roll curve
Yeah.
profile that you would see on in the street.
Yeah, and this would be probably much easier to pour and form and finish. Are there any questions or comments on these detail changes?
Carl, I'll make a motion to vote on and approve case 2203.
Carl, I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve this case. 2203. We'll take a vote.
Avondale,
Yes.
Buckeye,
Yes.
Chandler,
Yes.
Gilbert.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, El Mirage,
Yes.
Glendale, Goodyear.
Yes.
Goodyear is here.
Yep. Sorry, I'm late.
Maricopa County,
Yes.
Mesa,
Gordon, if I don't have a background on a certain case, can I abstain from voting, or how does that work?
you can abstain if you want.
Yeah, abstain. Thank you.
Peoria,
Yes.
Phoenix,
Yes.
Scottsdale,
Yes.
Surprise,
Yes.
Tempe,
Yes.
Youngtown,
Yes.
Okay, this motion passes. Okay, number 8, case 2204. Update concrete collar slope on detail 120, 270, 271, and 441. Last updated 4/25/22. Revise these details by showing the concrete collars as straight slope for consistency. Sponsored by Roy Harrington. Basically, I think it's pretty much the same as the last case. Anything on that, Roy, you want to tell the committee?
Thank you, Carl. You're exactly right. This case kind of stemmed from that previous case. And essentially what this is making the collars for the survey marker, for the detail 270, the frame and cover and grade adjustment, 271 and 441, to make them consistent with the collar from the previous case 22-03. And this case as well, I hadn't received any additional comments on.
Does anybody want to comment on this case or have any questions? Does anyone want to make a motion to approve this case?
Carl, I'll go ahead and motion to approve case 2204.
Okay, thank you, Craig.
This is Warren. I'll second.
Okay, we'll take a vote.
starting with Avondale,
Yes.
Buckeye,
Buckeyes, yes.
Chandler,
Yes.
El Mirage,
Yes.
Gilbert,
Yes.
Glendale, Goodyear,
Yes.
Maricopa County,
Yes.
Mesa,
Abstain?
Peoria,
Yes.
Phoenix,
Yes.
Scottsdale,
Yes.
Surprise,
Yes.
Tempe,
Yes.
Youngtown.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, that case passes. Number 9, case 2205, revised irrigation specification. Revised section 440 landscape irrigation system installation and section 757 irrigation system materials, sponsored by Ryan Nichols. Zach, would you like to, I'm not sure if Ryan passed this on to you or not, but would you like to talk about it?
Yeah, for sure. I'm wondering, Wayne, we didn't coordinate beforehand. Sorry, Wayne, did you want to mention anything regarding the specifications or details on the irrigation? Would you like me to take the lead? All right, so not hearing a response from Wayne, I'll go ahead and explain. Very similar to the landscape specifications, the irrigation section, the specifications work hand in hand with the landscape and irrigation design. And we do have some design specifications as well as materials that are provided in these specifications. I believe we are a little bit behind as far as the timing of the irrigation from obviously going with the landscape specifications, but we've gone through multiple edits. We feel that these are like a finalized version. I know these have been presented, I believe we discussed them last month. And so they're currently out for review and comment. And I don't know that I've received too many comments. I need to follow up with Ryan to see if there's been any other comments come in. But again, this really the same. It's a very similar effort to the landscape specifications where we haven't really had up-to-date specifications and or details for the landscape irrigation. And so this will update both these sections and provide a complementary set of specifications and details for the landscape details that were just passed or adopted, approved.
One of the things I know we've been requested last time when I was in the process of doing is kind of creating a roadmap of the sections, because I think the question was everything brought over completely? And unfortunately, I was not able to get that completed by this meeting. I am working to get that. So to provide a comfort level that things weren't missed, or I'd be able to have the committee see and their staff see what was changed and what it looks like. Simultaneously on the details, I know it's almost easier to talk both of them at the same time on this, excuse me, that we're Wayne and company were in the process of organizing those ones also. We had not come, at the time we had our last meeting, we had not, a working group meeting, we had not come up with specifically how they were going to be all organized. So I think we're still, unless something, Gordon, did Wayne submit anything on those on a reorganization? I wasn't sure.
I don't think there's been any changes to these details yet.
Yeah, I didn't think so. So we have to do a similar thing on these. We're putting them in groups. Right now, I think they're just straight numbered off. So we're going to be doing that probably at our next working group meeting. We'll bring that up on the 16th and get these ones organized in a similar manner. So any additions or modifications, they'll stay within the same number group. We don't get them jumbled all over the place. I think we're going to start on what we thought. I think we said like 610 or something. Starting that series with the irrigation. Try to leave the planting and the plants and hardscape stuff in the 600, and then we'll start 610 on these ones. So that's something we still need to do on getting them organized while we were waiting to get comments in.
Are there any other comments, questions?
This is Warren. Just one minor comment on this, on the sections, the subheadings on those sections. Those I don't believe you need. It's sort of inconsistent with the rest of the mag sections. Just that at the beginning of each section, there's a subheading.
You mean these?
But the very first page of the specs.
Correct. If you go up to the very beginning there, right there, irrigation. So that's, I don't believe that's not something we've used in other sections. So
Yes, you're correct on that. We need to delete that to make them consistent. You're correct.
I have a question on landscaping, irrigation in the right of way. Is it subject to trace wire in certain depths? I don't know if it's subject to the other laws that govern underground utilities, but I do know that on some projects we have problems locating irrigation lines when we're doing reconstruction.
I am not an expert in that. I don't know, Zach, do you know more about that?
And
I don't-
I apologize, I haven't read through them to look
I
for that.
don't,
You know, that is a issue on many projects I've worked on where there's
Yeah.
irrigation. I know nobody really knows where the lines are.
Well, okay, so when it comes to when you do utility locating, for example, ADOT will, if you call them a blue stake ticket, they'll go out and actually hook up to the ground on the wires of the control wires of the irrigation system, and that's how they'll trace out the irrigation lines. If you've got irrigation PVC lines in the ground by themselves, then of course, unless you have a tracer wire, you're never going to locate that line unless you hit it.
I do not think that tracer wires are required on the pipes themselves, though.
Typically, no.
Yeah.
If you take pretty much any county, state, city project that's landscape based, they're not going to put a tracer wire in with the irrigation lines, and that's typically because the irrigation mains is where the control wires are. So they use the control wires as the tracer wire. Off of the main going to the various zones, it steps down in size, but it's the main that's typically under pressure, which is obviously one side of the valve. The other side of the valve where there's not always water will get hit, and then it'll get repaired and then just put back in service typically before it goes active.
Yeah, I've thought about that too, Carl. It's like, it's true. Most of the wiring is put in the same trench as the main line, but it is important to locate these pressurized main lines. Once you get to the control valves, it doesn't matter because you can shut that off, you know, and you're not going to put tracer wire on laterals and all that, but the main lines need to be marked. So my only comment on that would be, you know, if they don't use a joint trench for the wiring for main lines, then the main line needs a separate tracer wire installed. And again, this is just in the right of ways.
Well,
Yeah.
and to that point too, you need to make sure on some level that the shutoff valve is readily known, because that's one of the biggest hurdles on specifically ADOT projects is the shutoff valves for the main are typically a mile apart in those fenced in houses, and you can't get inside of them without cutting the locks off. So you'll have water run for hours and hours before you get someone on site to actually shut it down.
They don't use the warning tape, I don't think. Usually the lines are pretty shallow.
Yeah, the job we're doing right now on, I think Glendale actually is the Northern Parkway, but they were 14 inches below ground, below dirt, below surface. So
For the mains?
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, 14 inches
Yeah.
wires just right off the fence line.
Our typical depth for the main line, and I'm not saying that this is the case for all municipalities or organizations, is 18 inches for the main, 12 inches for the non-pressurized lateral lines.
Yep.
So that's the standard we try to stick to, is 18-inch minimum for main lines.
Which is nice because it makes repairing it a heck of a lot easier when you do accidentally hit it, or if it's discovered, you know, accidentally by getting hit.
Is that in here in 18 inches? Is it specified here?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is a good comment. I'd like to go back and just verify that there's two things I want to verify, that we have a main line at 18 inches. Yep, right there. Control wire. And that our lateral lines are 12-inch minimum. But it's a good point, because a lot of times if you may have a main line extension for some reason that doesn't have a valve on the end, there wouldn't be a control wire that runs with it. So if you're trying to trace out that main line, for some random reason, you may not have a control wire next to it. I think we can put in some wording in there that in the event that that situation occurs, that there will be identified tracing wire that goes along with that main line.
Question
Yeah,
also,
we just did that one of our projects. The wiring is for, we shifted the meters, and so our main line is not going to be, not going to have any wire with it. So we're wanting it marked with tracer wire. So it does happen.
question for you on the main line itself too. Do you spec out a inline valve every so far to allow for shutting off and isolating a break, or is it just at the meter station for the control house?
No, so my background is mainly from like municipal type projects and not really long linear projects in the right of way, but typically we have isolation valves a lot more frequent than in mile intervals. And even on some of our roadway projects in the right of way, that we would do isolation valves more frequently for that reason. So you're not going far out to find an isolation valve in the event of a break.
Correct. One of the things that happens, and it's good to know that, and our guys are trained to look for them and find it, because when you're doing a lot of SUV work and you're either sitting in the curb with a vacuum truck, looking in the PUE, trying to do some SUV investigation, it's not uncommon when they're using the air lance sometimes to push it down and blow, and they'll actually break or pop the main line just by that method alone. I mean, it's not intentional, it's just it happens sometimes. And knowing that it's shallow is easy to repair, but knowing that there's inline main valves more consistently is going to be a big help going forward in getting that water shut off and minimizing the mess on the road.
Yeah, we usually mark the lids on valve box. That's one of our requirements.
Good.
So just as for quick reference, as you're going down the line, looking at all the different valve boxes, you can see if it's an irrigation control valve or if it's an isolation valve.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Do we have that in here? I think we need to do some research into this, if we've got the marking of the lids.
And I think today's approach with the irrigation specifications and details, where they are tracking a little bit behind the landscape, was mainly just to put it out there again that these are out for review and comment, and this is great feedback. And these are a couple things that I can definitely follow up and make sure we have them consistent. But it's also putting a plug in there that, hopefully we can wrap up our comment and review period in the next month or so that we can consider this as an action to move forward on this case. But again, this was perfect. This is exactly what I was hoping to hear, was some feedback on making sure some of these detail items are included in the specs. So I'll definitely double check the things that's been mentioned so far.
Yeah, and I'll double up on that, Zach, that we do like to get all the comments, and these ones we'll talk about at the next meeting. I know you're going to work on it prior to that. The meeting on the 16th, but and we'll have it ready for July. But as we start getting toward the end of the year, it would be very nice to get these voted on this year if we're getting these comments resolved rather quickly.
Peter, Zach, this is Craig out in Buckeye. Quick question on this. I mean, just the specific comment on the wired joint trench, whatnot. Is there a way we could put this in the details in the 2206 section? In the case 2206? And the reason why I ask is most of these things, when our contractors are putting these things in, they're looking at the pictures, which are the details and not so much of the specs themselves.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. I believe we have a detail section or a detail specific to that. It should be like a pipe placement depth, and it calls out the wiring. Maybe scroll through these. I don't remember just offhand.
Yeah, the detail 60104 and 60105, trench sleeving, pipe and wire trenching. So yeah, I was kind of looking at that, and we were talking 12 to 14 inches deep. I don't know, I guess I gotta just kind of look at these details a little closer and
Yeah, so this section here, this detail calls out the mainline depth if it's 2 to 4 inch at 18 inches deep, and then it goes deeper depending on the size of pipe. But it does call out the control wires, location to remain on the same side of mainline throughout the project. So within, adjacent to, not underneath the main line, but adjacent to the main line. If there's anything we need to do to add additional clarification from the detail standpoint, I totally agree, because you're right. Not everybody's looking at the specifications. The pictures are a lot easier to follow in the field. So yeah, we definitely want to make sure that it's clear and understandable from that standpoint.
right, exactly. Okay.
And Zach, one question. I'm sorry, I need to study these a little more too, but I know we all have instances where these may be potable irrigation or reclaimed irrigation. Is there anything where we need to maybe mention that? Like, obviously, when you do reclaim, you're going to have to identify it differently. And
I believe that's covered in the specifications.
I think you're good there.
Well, look right here, the one that's on the screen. Oh, if you go back to that, sorry, note 4, it talks about the purple for reclaimed or non-potable source. I believe that's infused throughout both the specifications and the details. At any time that it's a non-potable water source, that it's required to have purple valves, purple lids, purple boxes. But that's something, great comment. That's something we can definitely go back and make sure that that's consistent throughout, that it gives you the option. If you're doing a potable water source, you don't have to follow that purple. There's cases where here at the City of Mesa, anticipating future water source changes, that we're actually using some of the purple equipment, even though it's a potable water source. Not typical, but I like that there's the two options within the specifications and details. But that's a good point. We can definitely go back and make sure that it's clear as well in the specifications.
These are brand new specs and details, correct?
The details, yes, the specs, no.
Okay. And I gotta be honest, I only saw them the first time, I think, after the last meeting, which I wasn't at. So I do have to review these, and I'll try to get to them, get it back to you well before the next meeting.
Very good. That would be wonderful. I think it'd be nice before we close out this year to have this part of the MAG standards upgraded. It's been a long time since we've addressed these.
And I know you must have worked really hard on these too, that with the landscape professionals.
Yeah, I got to credit Zach and Wayne for putting quite a bit of effort into this.
Oh, that was another question I had. You got a lot of equipment call outs. I assume it's pretty generic, not name brand or maybe it's something called out or equivalent.
I don't remember us having, I'll take another look, but I don't think we have any product names, specific vendor related product names called out.
Okay.
Not that I remember. Not in the 700 section, I know that.
I know there was some effort to not be manufacturer specific for various reasons. Yeah, so all these details should call it, like the pop-up head. It basically just calls a pop-up head rotor type C legend. So if on the plan sheet, if, like, for example, City of Mesa, we have some standardized equipment, if it's not a federally funded project, we use our preferred products that our landscape maintenance crew has on the truck and what they use. In our landscape legend is where we'd call out if it's a rainbird or a hunter or anything of that nature. But from the MAG standpoint, the specifications and details, we wanted to not be, we knew we couldn't be manufacturer specific on the equipment.
Yeah. Okay, good. Any other comments from anybody? And I would encourage all of us to really take a look at these. This is a pretty big deal. These brand new details and updated specifications. So I think when they you actually put them to use, there's going to be probably quite a bit of feedback coming back from the field. So I think it's important for us to really take a good look at these details. Try to get any comments to the outside. Would that be Zach, or would it be to Ryan?
It should go to Ryan, I think.
Ryan?
Yeah,
Okay.
Ryan's been collecting the comments and then he forwards them on to me and Wayne, and we implement the comments, but the back and forth is through Ryan.
Okay. Have we anything else, or have we pretty much have talked both cases, 2205 and 2206.
So Carl, just as a general comment to kind of Peter, Zach, and Wayne, you know, with these new details, I've kind of made this comment before. With these new details, it's really going to up our game for the rest of the details because these are very, very nice.
Yeah. Yeah, they did a heck of a job on them.
So kudos to everybody.
Anything
you.
else? Okay, we're going to go to number 11, case 2207, new water valve 350 and manhole 450 abandonment details, updated 5/16/22. Create a new detail 350 existing water valve abandonment and detail 450 existing manhole abandonment, sponsored by Warren. You want to let the committee know what's going on here, Warren?
Sure, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. The highlighted changes reflect the comments from our last committee meeting. We did review these in the working group, and I don't believe we made any other changes. So this reflects our comments from last time. And then some additional ones I received from Craig. I'll talk through those. His group had some good comments. Starting with the backfill for the pea gravel, see now the ASTM references there, and also the free fall in place compaction. Does that look okay to everyone now? And then just some other clarifications. There's a graphical fix I made at the top to show the actual valve cover a little more clearly. And then notes 3 and 4 were added based on some comments I said from Craig and his group. Good comments. Any disturbed landscaping or property has to be restored. Section 107 covers that good, so I just use that. And then if the agency wants to salvage any of the components, there's that allowance there.
Thank you, Warren.
You're welcome. Thank you. So that covers that one. Any comments there?
Any questions on detail 350? Okay, 450 on the sewer manhole abandonment.
Likewise here, everything highlighted is based on our discussion at the last committee meeting. The backfill using this slurry, I added that at a slump of 3 to 5 as suggested inches.
Is that concrete plug too, right?
Yes, in the lower left, just consistency on the terminology, concrete plug instead of masonry. Some revisions to the notes, numbers, just for consistency, and made a couple typos there. Note number 2, plug all connected pipes with concrete 1 foot or 1 pipe diameter, whichever is greater. And then that second part, for Jim's suggestion, pipes 15-inch and larger must include special provisions on plugging methodology. And then again, added the same notes 4 and 5.
Any comments, any questions on these details? They seem pretty straightforward. Hearing none, we'll maybe look at bringing this forward for a vote next meeting.
Yeah, if you think it's ready, I'll action. I'm ready for action.
Any other comments? Okay. Case number 12, case 2208, revised detail 230 sidewalk to clarify cross slope tolerance and update section 340.3.9 tolerances. I was not at the last meeting. My proxy was here, and I've read through the meeting notes, and I think towards the end it was suggested that maybe the note number 7, and I got 2 of them on this. One is the cross slope is either cannot be more than 2% or less than 0.5%. If it's outside of those tolerances, then it would be rejected and replaced. But the suggestion, I think it came from Warren, was a construct per plan slope if different than 1.5%. Slopes that deviate more than plus or minus 0.5% from plan or detail 230 within the warranty period shall be replaced by the contractor. So I wasn't at the meeting. I'm not sure which way. I think the first note 7 is what I had originally, and you had some problems with that. If there's that much of a tolerance, then there might be a tendency to not build it to the 1.5% or per the plan. And then I went and looked at the specifications, and I know you have the straight edge type of thing, but I was looking more, and this is where it's all started. Was it on the tolerances? They want all finished concrete width and alignment shall not deviate from the plans. Typical section, I can't quite read it. There, it says it in there now that it can vary by 1/2 inch. And if I do 1/2 inch vertical, you're going to get more than 2% if you on a certain width of sidewalk. If you allow the hold one to plan elevation, and you allow the outer edge to rise 1/2 inch, it will exceed 2%. And so I added a sentence to this that concrete finish elevations shall not deviate more from the plan or standard details than by more than 1/4 inch. So there's an allowance of 1/2 inch horizontally, but I'm thinking that the elevation is more critical, and a 1/4 inch, a variation of 1/4 inch vertical will keep it within those tolerances. Again, I'm open to any and all suggestions or questions on this one. And again, we're trying to allow some variation, and it does happen over time where you poured it and you set it and it finished it exactly to plan, but within the warranty period, the ground swelled or shrunk, or there's landscaping nearby that caused some settlement, or other factors. And I've dealt with this quite a bit, especially in areas where we got the expansive soils. I think Craig I think you had some comments at the last meeting.
Yeah, I'm reading through it right now and I think the intent of it is we're looking for a standard cross section of 1.5%. Not to exceed 2%, but I think 1.5% is the target. Reading through this, looks like it's talking about concrete widths and alignments, which kind of suggests we're looking at a cross slope tolerance and a longitudinal tolerance. I do agree if we stick with a 1/2 inch on our cross slope solar, we're gonna blow our slopes pretty bad. I do like the 1/4 inch tolerance though, because that's going to help out a lot in terms of at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is we're trying to make a consistent sidewalk that doesn't exceed ADA requirements in terms of cross slope. And I think your 1/4 inch tolerance, I'll have to look into it and dig into it a little bit more, but I think the 1/4 inch, I think it's constructible. I'd kind of like to reach out to the construction guys and find out what their thoughts are on this, but when we start talking tolerance, I think the 1/4 inch is probably something that's palpable.
Can you scroll up to the sentence above there? Yeah, this is what I had previously. Yeah, and I have what I had was the cross slope of sidewalk shall be per plan or detail 230. Cross slopes greater than 2% or less than 0.5% shall be rejected and replaced by the contractor during the 1-year warranty period. That's on the detail too. But then an alternate to that would be cross slope of sidewalk shall be per plan or detail 230. Cross slopes plus or minus 0.5% from plans or detail 230 within the warranty period shall be replaced by the contractor. So that I know there's yet transitions, and you got other areas where the slope may not be actually designed something other than 1.5%. So I felt this might take care of that per plan or per detail 230.
So I know, Carl, you run numbers on one of these renditions, one of these rounds. We went with the detail. How does the 0.5% coincide with the 1/4 inch tolerance?
I haven't done. I'll admit, and I can do that and bring you back a kind of a scenario of a different, of using the 1/4 inch. I did it with the 1/2 inch and found it out of it was actually would have exceeded 2%, and maybe on like a 10-foot, maybe a 10-foot wide sidewalk.
Okay.
But I can do that, and that's something I can bring back to you guys to see where the 1/4 inch, where we end up with if we allowed a 1/4 inch.
Okay.
On one side of the sidewalk, being off by a 1/4 inch.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good.
So does it sound like the second note there is more in tune with the design intent of trying to build it to the 1.5%?
Yeah, I like the second note. What I was always concerned about is, okay, if we can go down to, a 0.5% and then up to 2%, you're going to have this undulating sidewalk, and I don't think any of us want that. But you have the possibility of that anyways.
Yeah.
But if we just throw the 1/4 inch on there and say, okay, this is where we're at, not to exceed. And if I recall, I think it was talking about, well, this is a cross slope.
I know when you start throwing in longitudinal slope, then you get like you got to go to do your calculus and vector geometry, and you might get something different. But the way I interpret ADA is it's like taking a cross section, and it's that cross slope that they're most concerned about. Longitudinal slope, at least in my research of ADA, especially on sidewalks, not necessarily curb ramps, but on sidewalks, they're not asking you to flatten the world for the ADA standards.
Yeah, I believe the ProWAG guidelines actually talk about your sidewalk or your pathways following the slope of your road that you're adjacent to. So obviously, if you're on a 4% road, you're not going to get a 2% sidewalk.
Okay, so what I can do then is I'll update this detail using the second note 7, and I'll show you what happens with the 1/4 inch deviation on the sidewalk detail. If you allowed it to vary by a 1/4 inch, what kind of slope variances you'd get.
Okay, that sounds good.
Are there any other comments on this case? Okay, hearing none, we'll go to 13. Case 2209, revised section 311 and 312 to include cement verification specifications, sponsored by Jeff Hearn, Concrete Working Group.
Thanks, Carl. I've received no comments, no discussions on the wording of either one of these sections up to this point.
Was this discussed at the working group?
It has been several times, yes.
Okay. I don't think I made it to your last working group.
So again, I would ask you guys if you make sure your team members have had a look at this or whatever. If we don't get any comments or additional discussions, I'll be looking at trying to move this forward on a vote in the next meeting in July.
Hey, Jeff, you didn't receive any comments from John Shee from Maricopa County, did you?
No, sir.
Okay, I'll make sure that I think he's seen it. I don't think he's got any comments, but I'll make sure about that.
That'd be great, Carl. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments or questions about these changes? Section 311, 312. Hearing none, we'll go to number 14. Revise section 702 to remove the 50% limit of recycled material that can be used, I assume in asphalt mix, is that correct?
For base materials.
Base materials, excuse me.
Same thing, no comments in the last month. We had no discussion about this at our last working group. I haven't received anything. So I would do the same thing here as with the last case. Make sure your team members have taken a look at it, and I'll be looking at the potential to get it voted on in the July meeting.
Okay. Any comments, any questions on this one?
Yeah, Jeff, this is Craig. I've kind of stuck a stick in my management side saying, hey, let's take a look at this, because we've kind of had some standards on this in the past, and I wanted to make sure that they're getting a look at this. So I kind of sent it to them again as a follow-up, hopefully to get their attention. So I'm trying to get something for you from our our management team. So as soon as I hear anything, or if I don't hear anything, then I guess you'll know from there.
I appreciate it, Craig. We're just trying to, we have several months left in our season yet. I would just like to have something that we could, finish by the end of this year on both of these cases to move forward into the standards in January.
No, absolutely. And the one thing I don't like to do is I don't want to come to you as soon as we're ready for a vote and say, hey, I got a comment. And we've had this for 3 months. So I'm trying to get ahead of the curve there.
Craig, you would not be the first and probably not the last, but we'll take comments whenever we get them.
Right on.
Okay. Hearing no other comments or questions, number 15, case 22-11, revisions to detail 420-1 and to update note 6. Updated 5/16/22, revised note 6 to clarify depth measurement and manhole modifications. Jim Badovich is the sponsor on this one.
Yeah, thank you. So you see there the detail 6 highlighted. That's been changed from what's in MAG now, just to clarify where that measurement is to be measured to just clarify, what is the 20-foot cover, because it wasn't clarified before. So we added that the 20-foot in depth is measured to the deepest outlet pipe invert shall require an engineered base design. The only comment we had, it was brought up at the last meeting, and then we discussed it at the working group, is that we don't really need the word outlet in there, because typically the deepest pipe should be the outlet if the sewer's working properly. So the only change, I didn't have a chance to do this on the detail here, would be just eliminate the word outlet. So what I'd like to do is, that was the only discussion we had at the working group. So I'll bring that back, next month with the word outlet removed. And then, if there's no other further comments between now and then, I'd like to see if we can maybe vote on it next month. So it'll be just like you see without the word outlet in there. So.
Are there any questions or comments about this change to this detail? Hearing none, then we'll bring it forward to a vote next month.
All right. Thank you.
Excuse me. No, number 16, case 2212, revision to section 618 and 738, water stop gasket. Update section 618 and 738 related to water stop gasket requirements for storm drain construction. Sponsored by Warren.
Thanks, Carl. No changes to the material in the pack at this point. I haven't received any additional comments, but we did discuss at the working group, and in terms of water stops are referenced in a number of other sections. Primarily it's in section 505 concrete structures, and then also 615, 738, 739, 740, and PVC as well, 745. But what I'm going to do is make some suggested minor tweaks to those other sections, and talk it through in the working group. I think ultimately the easiest route is to update section 505, adding the ASTM C923 reference for water stops in that section of 505.6.4. And then it may be just as simple as referencing that in all the other sections I mentioned. So a little bit of a cleanup to make things consistent, but I'll hopefully have that ready for the working group to talk through a little more.
Any comments, questions? Warren, you mentioned quite a few different sections. You saying that we don't have to revise all those? We just have to revise one that would take care of that?
Not exactly, Carl. It'll be, like I said, 505.6.4 in the concrete structures covers water stops. The paragraph there will need some minor revision, including adding that ASTM C923. The other sections where we say elastomeric water stop gaskets shall conform to the requirements of ASTM C923, we may instead say water stop shall conform to the section 505 mentioned. So we'll have to, that's what I need to just kind of draft out some options and present to everyone to see what their preference is.
Okay, so it'll be back at the working group. It sounds like next working group meeting.
That's the plan.
Okay, great.
Yeah, Warren, just a kind of a high level comment, thinking about that as you're talking through it, it didn't even click until just now. If we want to reference a material spec, do you think it'd be better to actually reference a material spec in the 700 section instead of in a structure section?
That's a good point, Craig. I'll look at that.
And I apologize, I didn't say it before, but yeah, as you were speaking just now, it kind of dawned on me. If we're actually talking a material, then maybe it would be best to put it in the section, in the 700 material section.
Yeah, it can be linked either way. You're right. And right now, that's kind of how it is in the 700 series. We do have the ASTM references there. So,
right.
Just there's some slightly different wording between those. So,
okay.
Any other comments on case 2212-12? Okay, 22-13, new detail 200-3, revised detail 200-1 and 200-2. This is new today. Create a new detail 200-3 to show trench cross section for rigid and flexible pipe. Revised details 200-1 and 200-2. This is sponsored by Warren.
thanks again, Carl. Yes, this is the draft that was presented by Adriana and Stu from Rinker in our working group. And it made sense to illustrate the differences between the installation of a rigid and flexible pipe. Thanks, Adriana. I did spell rigid incorrect there, so I need to fix that. But so putting them side by side, you can compare the difference between the two materials, and then the backfill allowances that are all part of what's stated in section 601 in terms of the haunching zone, 2 foot versus a 1 foot placement of the material. And there again, in the initial backfill, the allowance for 2 foot and 1 foot, and also the fact that concrete pipe, you can use native material, obviously with the appropriate material, the size and the that's noted in section 601. So basically, that's what this case is just kind of cleaned up these cross sections a little bit from what's currently on the in the detail, moving some things around a little bit. And the notes down below are tweaked slightly from what was there before. And then the other details, 601, 602, 200-2, no changes other than removing the cross-section detail from here. And then 200-1, just referencing the new, it was 200-2, now it's 200-3.
On the 200-3, I'm sorry, I can't quite see it. It's got to be a little bit bigger. What are the differences? It's the backfill?
Yes, that's
Material?
it, Carl. Just the different allowances for the lifts, 2 foot versus the 1 foot.
Oh, okay.
And then note number 2 covers the fact that there may be some slight differences between the trench widths and so on for the different materials, but it just kind of pulls everything together.
Are there any questions on this new detail? No comments? Okay, look for comments in, next month on this new detail. Number 18, case 2214, revised section 750 and 759, delete section 752. This is new. Revised section 750, iron pipe to remove cast iron, delete section 752 of asbestos cement water pipe. Revised sections 759, steel pipe to show standard length. This is sponsored by Jim Badovich.
Yes, thank you. So this is a new case. Gentleman from American Pipe, Wyatt Robinson, brought this to our attention at the working group. There's some outdated sections as far as related to the ASTMs and some other stuff. Because basically it's now anytime it's basically ductile iron pipe, so not cast iron anymore. So again, we're just trying to bring it up to the 21st century. And there's more than the ASTM, so it really is not a blooper case. So that's why we were best to do separate case, because there are some significant changes. So anyways, basically it's 2 things: updating the the iron pipe to eliminate cast iron and clarify it, as ductile iron. And then of course, get rid of the asbestos cement pipe that nobody uses anymore. So again, we're discussing this at the working group. If you have any comments, let me know. So we can get it in for discussion for later on this month. This looks pretty straightforward. Haven't had a whole lot of discussion. So anyways, that's it. Looking for any comments people may have. So
there's still cast iron and asbestos pipe in the ground.
True, but this is for construction of new pipelines.
Okay, and if it's repaired or replaced, it's with either a PVC or ductile iron. Is that correct?
Yeah, I don't know anybody that replaces asbestos with asbestos. So I don't think you can use it anymore, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it was always difficult to work around. It was like,
yeah, I think it's outlawed now.
Working around eggshell. Any comments, questions on this new case?
The only other thing that Jim didn't mention was Wyatt Robinson also said that for steel pipe, it comes in a standard length of 50 feet, not 40 or 60 as it's shown in our specs.
Right. So again, we're just trying to keep our mag specs a little more current with the industry. So
do we still show some of the details with the cast iron?
You might be right about that.
Yeah, maybe we ought to take a look, see if there's any cast iron left in old details. Take a look at that.
Yeah, Jim, I was just doing a quick search in the specs for any of the ISO standards, and we were going to put it in the polymer concrete manhole standard, but I think we took that out just because the ISO wasn't anything that we've typically used. I don't know if there's another zinc coating or a standard that we can use for that instead of the ISO standard.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, to me, ISO wasn't, it's not technical like ASTM. So if you read some of these, so it's.
So we'll look into it a little deeper under the working group.
Yeah. But yeah, that ISO spec may come out, but we should probably see if there's something else to just cover that.
Yeah.
I think it's covered in AWWA C104. So again, the ISO is kind of a, I don't know what you want to call it. It's really generic type of.
I kind of see it more as a record keeping standard.
Yeah, I think you're right. So it's not, I don't know. I don't think it belongs in a construction spec, but I know some people do include it. So.
Yeah, agreed.
A good comment. Thank you.
Any other comments on this this case? Okay, number 19, new and potential cases for 2022. Chair will solicit the committee for discussion of other new or potential cases. New and potential cases. Are there any new or potential cases to bring up at this time? Okay, hearing none. We'll go to
Carl, if I may, I did want to remind members that if they do want to submit a new case for consideration this year, July is typically the last month that we'll accept new cases. So if you have one that's in the works that you want to get ready for possible action this year, make sure and get it ready for the July 6th meeting.
Hey, can I suggest a case, micro trenching? Do you think we will ever take up micro trenching? I know a lot of the city councils are being approached to look into micro trenching. So it will be a matter of time before every city would have their own standard.
Has anything been proposed in writing? Any kind of details or specifications?
Not to my knowledge. But I would really suggest setting up a working group to look into it.
This is Adrian with the Town of Gilbert. I believe Mesa has put together a draft standard for micro trenching. I believe Lori Greco from AUCC from that represents Mesa has discussed a little bit about it. Gilbert, we're getting a lot of pressure too, so we are going to be advertising for a consultant to help us develop a micro trenching spec. We don't, politically there's interest in it. From the technical side of the town, there's not very much interest, but we're going to kind of prepare just in case it's the next wave of state law, similar to like the small cell or some of the fiber optic laws have come down from the state. So we're at least going to look into being ready of what those standards may look like should we need them.
There was a case we had a number of years ago on micro trenching that was tabled at the time. We may want to resurrect that.
I know Meg has been approached by different contractors or companies at different times, and we're also have had some pressure or people going straight to our regional council to propose micro trenching as an option for some telecommunications projects that people want to do. And there's been other companies that I've talked to personally that have asked Meg to look into it. I know we've looked at this like a few years ago, and the consensus at that time amongst the people that are on the committee, the technical people, were that they weren't really that interested in doing it or wanting it. And I think Arvid had some concerns about these, finding the utilities, the stake, blue stake law. So I know there's a lot of issues, but there is also a lot of pressure. I think AJ summarized it pretty well, that these companies, if they don't get their way through MAG or through the cities, they may try and do it through the state or political pressure. So I do think it's would be advised to take a look at them and maybe start working on them again.
And one question, this is AJ with Gilbert again. Is there any liaison between MAG and the Arizona League of Cities? My reason for asking is I could see where maybe MAG would want to take up something with micro trenching if there's a chance that it could be preempted, or so if it's anything similar to the small cell bill that came through in 2017 or 2018. If you had rules on your books before then, certain things could stay. So that might be something if there's a way that we could pass maybe very restrictive micro trenching, outside of the roadway section or maybe into PUEs only. If that would give us maybe a little bit better argument, if it did hit the state, that it's at least allowed just in a very restricted manner. I know most of my concerns end at the back of curb, personally. Maybe outside of sidewalk would be somewhere that it has a place. But definitely inside the road section, I think, is where, from a technical standpoint, it just doesn't work.
To answer your question, MAG does have a intergovernmental representative, but we're not allowed to lobby the state at all. So the guy who is here, Nathan Pryor, actually was in on one of the meetings regarding this micro trenching where we discussed it with some of these companies. But I'm not that familiar with, the laws and what standards we might have that could preempt them, if at all.
There are a lot of, at least the city of Tempe is talking to almost all of the fiber companies, and they all want micro trenching. And I have to say, they're talking to our mayor, they're talking to our city council, and like Gilbert said, it's going to be a matter of time. They will speak with the legislators, the state level, and this is going to be some kind of top-down, just like the small wireless facilities are. So I really highly suggest that we have a committee to look into it, or have some answers at the minimum when our elected officials start speaking with us.
Well, hi, it's Jim Badowich. I've go to some of these AUCC meetings. That's the Arizona Utility Coordination Committee. If MAG takes this up, we need to work with them, because they have a lot of coordination with the utility companies.
I agree. I think their next meeting is sometime next week.
Yeah, it is next Tuesday. So, it usually comes up for discussion there. The
difficulty is it's not going to be only limited to small, communication companies. If we allow micro trenching, then everybody's going to want to use it.
Yeah, but again, we do have to have the spec for it, just like we did with boring. I know Arvid can talk to that, but everything went from trenching to boring. So that's why we created the spec 608. So I agree, we probably need to deal with it here. But again, I think from what I understand, the micro trenching, they're not interested in going behind the curve. The whole idea is they always want to go on the street because it's easier for them. Whether it be boring, micro trenching is a little cheaper than boring. But if they're going to go behind the curb, then they're probably going to go back to boring. So I think the intent is to stay in the street, and that's some of the rub that some of the other municipalities have. It's like if the municipality has to go and do some work on the street, is that utility going to be in the way? And so that's what we need to, deal with and mitigate. Can they go, at the right at the lip of gutter? That's where a lot of this micro trenching goes, and not be an issue in the future, or be a detriment to the pavement.
The way that some of these companies are proposing, they want to be on both sides of the road, and they want to have a lateral crossings, and they want to be everywhere.
Oh yeah,
So
we're all dealing. We're all dealing with all the fiber.
Yeah, for now, it's fiber companies.
Can
So
we
I
do
don't know what the committee thinks, but I say we should at least put together something.
Can we develop a trench detail for new construction?
Oh yeah, it's all new.
And I think that was the problem is, if we create a trench detail and they want to be at a certain depth, and this is what I've heard, and I'm not always in tune with all of this with the right of way, but I do know that the concern was the depth, and we're not able to inspect and ensure that they're going to be put in at the right depth. So then later when we come back in and mill and overlay and things like that, we're going to hit them. It sounds like this happens in the alleys all the time, where they say they're supposed to be at a certain depth and they're not. They're just below the surface. So that the depth is one issue. Obviously, all these lines in the right of way, when we have PUEs and other intent to keep them out of the road, those corridors. I mean, the roads are busy, the PUEs are busy, but anything we put in the right of way, then it's by permit. And if we have to do anything as agencies, then we're going to have to pay them to move them, right? So it's a whole bunch here.
Yeah, and to piggyback off what Warren is saying, my understanding is most micro trenching max depth is about 18 inches, which will put them in your AB profile for almost every arterial street. So that's one of the biggest issues. So anytime that your street comes up for a full depth replacement, you're going to have to deal with theirs. The town we've discussed right now, you could allow micro trenching through your franchise agreements with the wireless providers, or not the wireless providers, but the fiber providers, and then have it be a section in your franchise agreements to that they would be responsible for future relocations when you do get to full depth replacements of the road, or anytime that it is uncovered, make them go in. The other issue is currently the fiber depth, I believe, is 3 to 4 feet, depending on what classification of road they're in. So the micro trenching is putting fiber well above what currently is required by MAG.
Well, and it also can be in conflict with water lines, like we require the fiber to go under our water lines. So, the micro trenching may be feasible just for, parallel to the street, but if you're crossing utilities, I don't know if that's going to work. Because SRP and a lot of other utilities want that underneath theirs, so you only can bore that. So I don't know. I agree. We need to work with them. We have worked with them in the past, and we've brought up our concerns, but they've never come back and said, yeah, we can address that. So there's probably some solution that we need to, some middle ground that we can find for at least a MAG spec. If the cities want something different, then they can do go through their contract with the fiber companies, or their MAG supplements. So
I have to say these folks are pretty smart. They figured they don't want to speak with the technical folks. That's why they never came back to MAG. it's easier for them to speak with our elected officials. So I don't know. We probably need to do something. I don't know if you've all seen the Mesa standards. Not only they have drawings, but they also have a specification that goes along with it. That's a very good start.
Yeah, I've heard about that. So I don't know, maybe it wouldn't be a bad idea. If one of these cities is comfortable with it and using it, then we can maybe ask them to bring forward a case. I think they're the only agency, maybe Scottsdale too, that have some standards. I don't know. Roy, what you guys got standards that you use?
I was waiting for you guys to mention Scottsdale. We actually did develop a detail, was several years ago, back when the city was being courted by Google Fiber. A detail was developed, but my understanding was obviously Scottsdale did not get the contract with Google, and the detail was developed as part of getting that contract, or that yeah, I guess contract, or whatever you would call it. So detail was developed, but I don't think it has ever been used. And for some of the same reasoning that's already been discussed, that I don't think it's necessarily where Scottsdale wants to go. And in addition to some of the other conflicts you guys have talked about, that yeah, if you're right at the lip of gutter and max depth to 18 inches, in addition to the water lines, I mean, you're any place where you've got a catch basin, you've got storm drain lines, you're going to be in conflict with that stuff too. So it was a detail that was developed, but I don't think it was ever used or utilized.
Just a thought. I wonder if they would consider if maybe the allowance that if ever in conflict with any agency project, they would move their lines at their own cost, something like that. I know that doesn't save us in all cases in project delays and things like that, but that's something to consider.
Do the cities have any desire to reserve micro trenching for their own uses, like street traffic cabling? Or, I mean, if it's an easier way to put things in, do you want to give away the easy way to the cable companies, or do you want to reserve it for your own uses? Or do you just not want it at all?
I know City of Tempe IT department is also looking into using micro trenching for our own use.
Is there someone that represents the industry that can do a presentation or more on the technical side? And I think we had one a couple of years ago, didn't we?
Yeah, Crown Castle presented to us about a couple of years ago, I think before the pandemic.
I mean, they must have done it somewhere, and kind of wonder
Oh
if
yeah, they've been presenting to the city of Tempe like a lot. So Google would come, if you know, they'll probably come and present it to us here as well. We had Crown Castle, Zayo. Several people are interested in it.
But it sounds like this doesn't just impact the roadway. It's all the other utilities that are in there. in the right of way too.
Well, that's why they've come and presented at the Arizona Utility Coordinating Committee meetings as well. I know one of the members of that, Al Field, he's there's some pretty good literature out there. It shows them, how it works and all that, the specs on it. So there's specs out there. So I don't know. I would like to see what Mesa is doing. And again, not just the spec, but if they have so many miles of it in place, what kind of problems they've had with it, if they have any, or get some feedback. So
I think Phoenix is the only municipality in the area that has done any actual installation of microtrenching.
okay.
I don't think Mesa has actually allowed it to go in. They may have some test cases they've done, but Phoenix is the only one that comes to mind.
Yeah, Phoenix have had 4 different test decks, and I think they did not end up liking it.
This is Zach from the city of Mesa again. This just came up in a meeting earlier today. This isn't really part of what I work on, but Lori Greco is our utility, our right-of-way manager and works with utility groups. I know she's been very plugged into this conversation and doing a lot of work. I don't know, Gordon, I can forward you her contact information. She would be a great resource. I know we've been working with a couple different companies trying to bring fiber to homes, and she's been working through detailing that effort as well as the contractual side of it as well. So I don't know if she might be a good resource.
That would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's a lot. It's a new technology, and that's why it takes a little bit of time to get traction. Like when we did the 608 spec for boring, a lot of companies were already doing it, and cities were allowing boring for years before MAG developed a spec for it. So it's just one of those issues, I think, where the technology is ahead of the specifications, and so maybe now is the time to see if we can incorporate some details, specs into MAG that can address it, since it's been out there for a while now. So
one thing that I like to say to industry people who are proposing these kinds of new specs is that the MAG book is called Standardized Specifications and Details, because we put things in there that are standards, that people are already using and have kind of proved to ourselves. So I think that's one way to think of it too, is if these cities do the tests and they find that they do work and they've got developed specs and details that can be used, and they're standard, then it's a good place for them in MAG. But I don't see MAG standards as kind of like the test bed for new projects.
no, you're right, Gordon. That's why a lot of the stuff gets tested, from city to city. I mean, look at some of the, the polymer type manholes and that. I mean, all the cities have experimented with those, and before they actually got into MAG. So it's right. MAG isn't test bed. It's just once it's been out there, I think we, find the best spec and get it in there. So yeah, no, good discussion. But it would be good to, engage with those guys again. So.
So this isn't really a case though, is it? Yeah.
Well, not yet, but again, let's talk to Mesa and Scottsdale and Tempe and see where they're at. And maybe one of those agencies can bring a case.
Okay.
Or again, just at this point, we just want more information. So it doesn't have to have a case right now, but if they can do more presentations and we get some common ground as what can be accepted, then you go, and then maybe somebody will be comfortable with it. bringing a case in, so. Again, any specs got to pass the majority, become, to get in there, so. Become an actual spec, so.
Kind of like the name they've chosen, micro trenching, sounds like that's the spec. Something quick and easy. Yeah, sorry.
Jim, this is Brian with WSP. We've been talking about this quite a bit industry-wide, and I know Arvid's said some things about it, but in our 811 meetings, the struggle industry's having, and I know some of these other cities are using it, the installation of it's pretty slick or innovative. The problem we're struggling with is the remediations of the roads, and how do we as contractors locate these very thin lines that are potentially could be in the area we're supposed to be working in. And that's the struggle. There's, right now we're still cutting lines that was put in by Cox that are still active 20 years ago, and they cut 1 inch into the top of the pavement, and then we go to do a mill and overlay, and all of a sudden we cut 10 people's services. So we don't want to go down that road again with this micro trenching.
Have you seen the Scottsdale spec? I think they have some kind of marking along the entire line on the sidewalk. Scottsdale, you can correct me, Roy. Their spec call is for you have to have some kind of marking along the sidewalk that stays there permanently.
That is correct, but that marks the line, and per 811, I have to locate it, right? So how do I tell the depth? Just because it's located, 811 tells me I got to be within a certain parameter, and I have to physically locate it before I start construction. How do I do that?
And Brian, to your point, the terminology is physically expose it. You have to, per Arizona revised statute, anyone who takes a teaspoon and digs into the earth has to have a blue stake ticket, and they're responsible to physically expose and protect all existing infrastructure and do that by a non-destructive means. And the only way to get through asphalt is with a core drill or a jackhammer. And if you're embedded in that asphalt or just below it, and the jackhammer goes down through the asphalt into the subgrade and damages that fiber, now there's going to be a problem. And that's been something that we've been trying to convey all along with this topic, is how is it going to be protected and potholed and physically exposed in the future for future growth projects?
I think those are really good questions for these facility owners if they ever come in front of this committee.
Yeah, and again, it's really following just along the lines of the questioning that are within the parameters of the Arizona revised statute. If we can get the Arizona revised statute to change their language, of course, then it changes the ballgame. But so far, we haven't had anybody willing to take on that battle and change the language of how the actual utility has to be physically exposed and protected in place by a non-destructive means.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're just like another utility, so they got to play by the rule, the blue stake rules, 811 rules, so just like everybody else. So.
Anything else on micro trenching?
That was a micro discussion.
I think it was more of a macro discussion.
Yeah, I agree.
It's one thing that I had an opportunity to do recently at a conference was talk to someone a little bit more about this, and the macro trenching, which goes down to 18 inches below bottom of asphalt, which gets you below typically, let's say 60% of subgrade for the road. would be probably more attractive to the municipalities than the micro trenching. The micro trenching is so shallow. That's what scares everybody, is in 5 years when the city has got to put something across their perpendicular. How is a contractor going to responsibly, within the bounds of the law, do their job without damaging that existing fiber? And then if it gets damaged, of course, it becomes a litigation problem, because now the owner is going to say the contractor broke it, and now they're going to have to fix it.
To get down 18 inches, you gotta have a trench, what, at least six inches wide, maybe?
No, they're doing it anywhere from 2.5 to like almost 4 inches. They're basically using a wheel saw, and then laying in it's a square duct that's got anywhere from 2 across, 3 across, 3 high, like micro ducts, that then they're pulling through the 6 and 7 and 12 strand fibers through those things. And so the concern is you might have a small footprint, but you might be running 5 or 6 fibers in that footprint with, who knows how much volume. And it's not like the old duct banks that were 36 by 36 concrete encased. This is something that, is that big, basically. And the spade on my jackhammer is 4.5 inches wide, and it goes through everything.
Well, they have to have junction boxes at some point, and laterals, and
yeah, all of that's going to be done too. So it'll be a neat discussion, obviously, as we get further along in it.
Well, and here's the other problem with this. It's not just one. You might be dealing with 5 different companies that want to go along the same route. So how does that work? So
and that's part of the equation too, Jim.
It's not just one, and it's not one and done, guys. I can tell you that. I've got 3-4 companies going in the same side of the street all the time. They all want to get to some location before the other guy, and it's a real, I don't know. It's really tough.
Well, it's a race, Jim. It's a race to get in first so that they have the most room to do it.
Okay, well, in the interest of time, let's move on to 20. Working group reports, water and sewer. Jim?
Yeah, we met, hold on, let me pull it up here. So we met on the May 17th. Basically discussed the cases that we voted on or are gonna vote on, from Warren's cases and Roy's from Scottsdale, the manholes, adjustments and the abandonments, and the collars. We talked about that. Talked a little bit about, again, all the cases that you've seen, water and sewer related. We did have a little discussion on, we're trying to go with coming up with a spec on the sewer video testing and mandrel standards. So we're working on that. Trying to come up with a standard air relief detail. We've got industry people helping us on that. The ductile iron discussion. So that was about it. We did have a little discussion on with some industry folks about the mag meter boxes. Apparently there might be some differences in the dimensions. So we may be visiting that in the future shortly, see if we need to modify mag to fit the industry measurements, and being interchangeable, because some of these boxes, are not to be put in concrete, and then the ones that are, they call them incidental loading. So they're not. It's not a it's not a AASHTO H20 box with a steel lid. It's something that can take occasional traffic, and like we use those in residential areas, in sidewalks and driveways. They seem to be holding up okay. But anyways, so that may come up in a future case. Our next meeting will be June 21st, the first day of summer. So we're doing both, in person and virtual meeting. So you have the choice. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Asphalt Materials, Greg or Jeff?
You see the meeting notes in your packet. As I mentioned earlier, we discussed the case 2210 and 2209. We didn't have any discussion on those in our last working group meeting. We did have just a general discussion about material shortages and the effects that those could have on approved mix designs, particularly asphalt mix designs. We didn't really come to any conclusions. We were just kind of brainstorming amongst each other as to how the process might go. Various individuals had, as you can see by the notes, had various discussions with different agencies, and we probably will have more of that kind of a discussion at our next MAG working group. But want to make sure that I point out to you, though, the next working group is on the 23rd of June. It's not the third Thursday, it'll be the fourth Thursday this time. And we moved it 1 week because the ARPA convention is that the week we would normally meet, and there'll be nobody here at the ARPA offices. So it'll make sure it's the Thursday, the 23rd of June, 1 o'clock.
It's a virtual meeting, correct?
And it's a virtual meeting, yes.
Okay, thank you.
If I could for just 1 second, I'd like to just expound a little bit on that whole conversation. And EVAC is allowed a 1-point verification, as does ADOT. And we're just trying to look for some sort of commonality across all of them. And it's not for changing aggregates at all. This is specifically related to a binder supplier change for the same grade, that most generally your burn-offs and your nuke calibration or nukes that City of Phoenix does, those are more predicated based on the aggregate components and not the binder components. So that's why we're having these discussions, is to try and move that along. And as Jeff pointed out in the bottom of the notes there, that concrete has pre-approved, different cements or whatnot in the designs. We're just kind of looking for the same approach to give us a little flexibility, especially in some trying times, I guess. That's all I had.
Okay, thank you. Outside right-of-way working group. Peter?
Yes, we see we've got the summary of the notes, talked about a lot, again, the landscape and irrigation details that we've already gone through. We'll go to some of the, you can see some of the categories we were talking about. The other items we are working on, we're hoping, kind of crossing my fingers, we may get to some of these before the in July. Not sure it's going to happen this year at this point or not. We do have 2 details we're working on toward vegetated bioswales, rock detail, and section details, and then the spillway details. I'm going to try to resurrect that a little bit. Our main person working on it's been very busy in the city of Tempe, where they had a little water break somewhere around the freeway, and it kind of ate up his time to be working on this. Of course, we understood that. So if it gets delayed, it gets delayed. We'll work toward that. The underground storage tank, Keith Ketsty with City of Tempe, talked to Warren a little while ago, what's going on. And I think the Chandler experience is probably driving a lot of what we're learning. We understand Chandler is considering eliminating underground retention tanks that are made from CMP materials. And so we want to look at further options that would be a bit more broad, not just the CMP options, but other materials and other vendors that are providing these kinds of items. So Keith is continuing his research on that. We'd like to make sure we get it right before we start putting something together. And of course, I'm still slowly working on the drywall standards. And we're likely going to be next year after I officially retire for the second time, and I can actually have time to work on this kind of stuff. So we have our next meeting scheduled for June 16th. That's a Thursday at 11 a.m. and I can answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Peter.
Thank
Any
you.
questions? 21, general discussion. Chair will lead discussion on topics of interest relating to specifications, construction practice, or technologies. Standard specification details committee is not allowed to take action at the meeting on any matter in the discussion unless specific matter is properly noticed for legal action. Are there any general discussions? We had a pretty long one on the micro trench. Is there anything else?
I have a brief comment on the ASTM links in our specifications. It's been brought to my attention, and I noticed this myself. If you click on a link to the ASTM in our specs and details, the links no longer work. The ASTM Compass changed how their website is linked, so those are all broken. So if you are looking for a spec, you're probably just gonna have to go to the Compass website and then type in the number of the spec to go to it. I've contacted ASTM and they say that they're working on it. They used to have a link that would redirect it to the website for people who don't have the paid access. And for those of us who do, like the member agencies, it would go directly to that specification, but those links are not working anymore. So hopefully they'll get a new way to redirect them, and I can update all the links in the specs book this year. But for now, you'll just have to put them in manually.
Okay, any other general discussion? Tony, 2, requests for future agenda items, topics or issue of interest that Standards Specification Details Committee would like to have considered for discussion at a future meeting will be requested. Again, I think we talked about the micro trench. Maybe we can bring some of those real life experiences and standards forward for discussion. Are there any others? Hearing none, go to 23. Comments from the committee. Opportunity will be provided for members to present a brief summary of current events. Are there any comments? Hearing none, I'll ask for, did I make a request for adjournment? Okay, hearing none, we're adjourned. Next meeting is going to be July 6th. Is that correct? July 6th. And I guess it'd be the same virtual and the option of coming in person. And I believe Ryan will be back by then. So is that correct? So
As of right now, yes.
Okay, thank you. And we're adjourned.
Thank you all.
Thanks everyone for holding in for such a long meeting.
All right, thanks, everybody.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.